Good afternoon. At this time, we'll call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Schaefer?
Here.
Commissioner Allen?
He's here.
He's in the building. Commissioner Klicka? In the building. Commissioner Osterhaus?
Here.
Commissioner Ashcraft?
Here.
Commissioner Brown?
Here.
Chairman Eilert?
Here. We do have a quorum present. I don't think there's any action item that will be taken today, but we're to receive a report on the Strategic Facilities Master Plan. So, Mr. Reinhardt.
Good afternoon, Chairman Eilert and Commissioners. I'm Brad Reinhardt, Director of Facilities Management. I'm pleased to be here this afternoon to provide this update on the 2018 Strategic Facilities Master Plan. I'm also excited to be here today with Jill Geller, Executive Director of Johnson County Park and Recreation District, Sean Casterly, County Librarian. They will each provide updates to their respective capital master plans, and I want to thank both Jill and Sean for their participation and support. Also, Roberta Proctor, our Workplace Strategy Manager in the Facilities Management Department, will provide an update on the county's portfolio of properties, and she'll be assisted by Dan Waymueller, our Project Manager for the courthouse. Will have a brief update on the courthouse project.
Okay, thanks.
Again, as you indicated, this is informational only. Jill will kick things off with the Park and Recreation District's Legacy Plan update. She'll be followed by Sean with the Comprehensive Library Master Plan update, and Roberta will finish with an update on the Facilities Department portfolio of properties. In between presenters, we'll take questions if that's acceptable to you. The county began the Strategic Facility Master Plan process in 2001 to address ongoing facilities needs and plan for the orderly and informed response to future needs. Since that time, the purpose statement has remained consistent: to evaluate facilities against county objectives, anticipate changing department needs, support the capital improvement planning process, and monitor facility use and management. The objective of the SFMP is to align each department's physical facility strategic goals and allow for flexibility to respond to change. As we work through our respective programs, we always keep in mind the strategic priority number one of the Board of County Commissioners, and specifically that is to complete or advance existing projects approved by the voters and the BOCC with efficiency and effectiveness. So we keep that in the forefront of the work that we do to plan and implement these projects. And so with that, I will turn it over to Jill Geller, who will provide an update from the Park and Recreation District.
Jill?
Can you put the mic on there, Jill?
Oh, was it not on? I'm sorry. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here this afternoon. We do have a lot of information to share with you, but I'm going to go through it fairly quickly. Our capable Deputy Director, Jeff Stewart, is putting up a map of the county because as we talk about the many projects that we have, in case you're not familiar with where in the county some of these are, just let me know and I'll point it out on the map over there. But we're going to get started by, again, revisiting your strategic priority number one. We know that you're committed to your strategic priorities, and we are as well. So you'll see in this presentation, JCPRD is working very hard to ensure that you and we are delivering on our promises. So this next slide is an overview of the many major projects that we'll be highlighting today that are underway in 2018. Please know this is just a fraction of the project work being done by our staff this year. We have a total of 34 major projects scheduled to begin in 2018 and approximately 25 major projects that began in 2017 and are carrying over. So you can see our staff are working very hard to open new parks and trails and also take care of our existing assets. I'm not going to go through this list because you're going to hear about all of them coming up. The first one is our Shawnee Mission Park Beach House. As you know, the old beach house had been there for 30 plus years in terrible condition. It was raised about a year and a half ago, and this beautiful new beach house has been completed. Unfortunately, we couldn't open yesterday because of the weather, so we'll be opening the beach house Memorial Day weekend, and we plan to have a nice grand opening. This facility historically has had annual participations about 25,000 to 35,000. So it's very popular, and we imagine with this new amenity, it's going to be even more popular. So we will be notifying you. You'll all be invited to our grand opening Memorial Day weekend. Antioch Park, Dodgetown. I hope many of you have fond memories of Antioch Park and even remember playing in Dodgetown maybe when you were young, because it's been there well over 50 years. We are making some major improvements to Dodgetown. You can see the bulleted items that show what these improvements are going to be, but we actually raised the entire existing structure and are starting new for the first time in 50-plus years. Dodgetown is one of the most popular playgrounds in our system. It was voted one of Kansas City's best playgrounds by Casey Parent Magazine and was voted number 3 of the top 50 playgrounds in the U.S. by the Early Childhood Education Zone. So you can see our new amenities. We have all the small Wild West buildings that we used to, and now we have a train station as well. So there's a train that is actually a piece of play equipment, and then the train depot where parents can sit in the shade and watch their kids. This will be opening later this spring. Big Bull Creek Park, you're all very familiar with, so I'll go through these very quickly. You know that we're developing that park in kind of 3 zones. We have the north zone, the central zone, and the southern zone. In the northern zone, we have our park police and maintenance building, and you can see from the image there that building is pretty much completed, and we'll be moving into it in just a few short weeks. In the central zone is what most people would consider the traditional park area. You can see there we have a playground, open play lawns, a couple of picnic shelters, the restroom and a kiosk, a lot of prairie restoration in this park, and 3/4 mile of looping trail. So the photograph below, you can actually see the trail being completed. And the southern zone is where we'll have a group camping area for organized youth groups, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. We do have a lot of requests for those amenities, and we're happy that we'll be able to provide those. So we expect Big Bull Creek Park to be opening later this spring as well, probably, I would say, in early to mid-May. Meadowbrook Park, you've seen this image many times before, but perhaps not the photo at the bottom left, which you'll see the pond work is completely done. The trails work on the south side of the park is mostly completed as well. We haven't gotten a lot done on the northern end of the park, north of Meadowbrook Parkway, but that's underway right now, as well as the Meadowbrook Clubhouse building. So we envision that being open early summer. The Meadowbrook Park Clubhouse, you've seen this image before as well, that sits right there at the north end of the park. Will include a multi-purpose classroom, event space for approximately 200, an early childhood education center, and the lobby and welcome area. And we're already receiving lots of calls about that early childhood education center, parents wanting to enroll their child, and also about the event space. So we know that the facility is going to be very popular when it opens. We're thrilled to be opening 2 all-inclusive playgrounds this year to meet the needs of families and children of all abilities. The first one that will be opening is in Shawnee Mission Park. This will be next to the softball field in Shawnee Mission Park, if you're familiar with where that is. This is a great location because there's already a large parking lot right there, so we are saving a lot of expense by already having that infrastructure in place for the playground. This is just kind of an image of the many amenities that you might see, the many play pieces that you might see at this playground, and there will be a fully accessible restroom facility here as well. In addition to the inclusive playground at Shawnee Mission Park, we're doing one at Stillwell Community Park as well. This project also includes a restroom building and a picnic shelter. This is located out on 207th Street, just east of Metcalf. These are some of the amenities that would be at this playground, and they really are going to be 2 different playgrounds. So while they're both all-inclusive and will hopefully meet the needs of that population, they'll get 2 very different experiences when they go to one park versus the other park. Mid-America West Sports Complex, you're familiar with that, and Mid-America Sports Complex, which is right across the street out at Johnson Drive in Shawnee. This building is going to serve as the maintenance facility for both of those complexes. We acquired this facility in 2004, and the maintenance building at that time was quite subpar. So we're very excited to have a new maintenance facility to be able to better store our equipment, take care of that facility. Those 2 facilities combined see nearly 3/4 of a million people on site every year. You can see an overhead of the two facilities. The facility at the south end of this picture is Mid-America Sports Complex, where we have 10 softball fields and 2 baseball fields. And the one across the street and to the north is Mid-America West, where we have 12 youth softball fields and the Oaken Fieldhouse. So there is a lot of facility to care for there, and we're really excited to get this maintenance building up and running. Cedar Niles Trail is a new development to begin design later this year with construction in 2019. This will add 4 miles of trail in our Cedar Niles property. And so over on the left, the image on the left, you can see the purple indicates the JCPRD trail. That's about 4 miles of trail. The blue indicates trail that's being developed by the city of Olathe, and then the red is trail that's being developed in partnership with our 2 agencies. All told, when this trail is done, we'll have about 10 miles of continuous trail. And the image that was on the right on that slide is just a zoom in of the JCPRD property. That's the 4 miles that we'll be developing. Kill Creek Trail, this image, you may not be familiar with Block Barn, which is a structure and some acreage that we've owned for quite a long time out on 143rd Street west of Gardner Road. And we're really happy to be extending Kill Creek Trail to where now Block Barn will be the trailhead for that. It's about 1.5 miles of additional trail extending south out of Kill Creek Park, which that trail currently ends at 135th Street, and now it will conclude at Block Barn. So the image on the right is the Block Barn. It's a beautiful structure. The image down below is the entrance into that area from 143rd Street, and then the image in the upper left is just a rendering of what that will look like. You can see the large parking area for the trailhead that then extends out on the trail. So all told, there will be probably 5 or 6 miles of trail there to get people through Kill Creek Park. The Kill Creek Observation Tower is a project that we're doing in partnership with our Parks and Recreation Foundation of Johnson County. This will be a new observation tower in Kill Creek Park. It's partially funded through a $1 million donation from the Russell Means family, who is the family from whom we purchased much of the land of Kill Creek Park, but who also donated about 300 acres of land out there. It's a 45-foot tall tower with an elevator and a staircase, and we know that the Means family would be thrilled that we're putting their donation to this use because they were so proud of this beautiful property, and you'll be able to go up there and just see the vastness of this beautiful prairie. The John Barkley Plaza at Shawnee Mission Park will be the new entrance into the park. This design was actually approved by our board last night. And for those of you who've not been to Shawnee Mission Park lately, we now have a new, improved, and safer road entrance into the park, which directly aligns with 79th Street to the east. So now when you come into the park, once this is done, you'll see this beautiful area as well, located where the former visitor center sat, that little trailer that you've heard me talk about before, which is no longer there. It will include a large pavilion shelter, additional parking, gathering places, seating walls, and native plantings. We find that the entrance of Shawnee Mission Park truly is a gathering space for lots and lots of groups. They meet up there to hit the road on their bicycles or hit the trails as they run. And so this will be a beautiful entrance into Shawnee Mission Park and very well loved by our patrons. The Shawnee Mission School District Aquatic Center you're very familiar with, but just wanted to bring it up because it is a project that our staff are working in partnership with the school district on. You know that ground has broken, construction has started. We will operate and manage the facility while the school district owns it. There's seating for about 1,500 in this natatorium, a 50-meter competitive pool, a warm-up pool, and a locker and changing room. This is located right across from City Center in Lenexa. And this is a view of that looking from the west. The structure that you see in the foreground is the parking garage, and then the aquatic center is in the background. We have much trail work that we're doing, and so I provided a graphic that you've seen before to kind of give you an indication of what's been done on this graphic since the last time I showed it to you. The green circle indicates Coffee Creek Trail, which we completed this past year, and it's open and very busy. It's 3.5 miles of trail extending east out of Heritage Park. If you look at the trails in blue, circled in blue, those are ones that will be coming online this year. I mentioned the Cedar Niles Trail and the Kill Creek Trail extension. And then within the next 5 years, we hope to also complete those segments that you see outlined in orange. All told, this will be about an additional 8 miles of trail that JCPRD is developing in the county. So just to highlight, over the next 5 years, we do have a couple of new park developments that we'll be starting on. Camp Branch Park, which is located out near 183rd and Mission Road, and we'll be working on a master plan for that park and getting some of that development underway here in 2021. And then Big Bull Creek Park Phase 2. This is a very minor phase of Big Bull Creek Park that we're opening this year, as you could tell, and so we hope to do another phase of that in 22 and 23. And then there's a listing of the many new trail developments that we have coming online in the next 5 years as well. As far as park improvements, part of our legacy plan was not only opening new, but absolutely taking care of our existing assets. So I won't go through this bullet by bullet, but you can see the numerous big projects that we have coming up in the next 5 years. So we always like to ask ourselves, how are we doing, and what does success look like? So first of all, high rankings on the citizen survey is very important to us. You know that residents rate JCPRD as one of the top 3 county services that are most important for the county to provide. They also agree that JCPRD enhances the quality of life in Johnson County and that our facilities and programs positively impact their health and well-being. So to us, success is providing high-quality services that maintain and grow these positive perceptions. We want to make sure that residents know what we do and appreciate what we do. Another thing that success looks like is increasing the usage of our JCPRD parks and facilities. You've heard these numbers before, more than 7.5 million visitors to our parks every year, more than 2.5 million participations in our programs. Wanted you to know we had over 80,000 visitors to the Arts and Heritage Center just in the half year that we were open last year. And Lexington Lake Park, which opened in July, had over 65,000 visitors. So to us, success, again, is growth in our visitations, participations, providing better access to all to our parks, trails, and recreational opportunities. And lastly, we want to positively impact the community's economy. I shared with you a couple of years ago the Trust for Public Land study, which showed that JCPRD adds approximately $100 million to the Johnson County economy each year. We also did a study in partnership with the City of Shawnee last year where we commissioned the Convention Sports and Leisure Group to do a study on Mid-America Sports Complex. And this study showed that facility alone generates nearly $8 million in total spending annually in Johnson County. We know that we need to make improvements to that facility, and this study showed that if those improvements were made, it would increase that revenue to over $17 million in total spending that would come to Johnson County. And lastly, I quoted the American Planning Association research on parks' economic impact on a community. And these are things that you already know, that real property values are affected, municipal revenues are increased, and so on and so on. So to us, again, success is building upon our opportunities, providing a greater impact on Johnson County's economy. We know that we are an economic driver in this region.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and as a liaison here to the Parks Commission, obviously I have the advantage of kind of seeing the inside efforts of going on over at the parks, and I know one of the things we discussed when we passed the bond issue for the parks, or the property mill on the parks, was that we asked the parks to move aggressively and get the projects underway. I've not seen an organization as such that has moved the way it has, and I think we're seeing that, and I appreciate it, Jill, very much, and Jeff, and to the rest of the team that are out there. There are a couple things that we will be faced with as a commission as we move down the line. Number one is from an operational standpoint, with all the added acres of parkland being opened up, the spread is greater and wider than it's ever been. Jill's been asked to come up with a security plan to at least give us an idea of what the needs are going to be from a park security standpoint as we go down the line. So we will probably see over the next couple of years additional staff being requested from to enhance the security of the parks. And I think, as many of us are aware, we do have some of those challenges. And when you've got 7.5 million people visiting those parks, we face some of those challenges coming down the line. Moving into one of the challenges that we're going to have to wrestle with down the line, too, is going to be the Mid-America facility and the Heritage Park soccer fields. The demand coming from the public and the communities to get those areas improved will probably force those issues to come to the table sooner than maybe what was originally anticipated. But these are things just to at least let you know what's coming down the pike here. So as we see it coming through the budget in other ways. So, but with this, as you can see here, it's been an active year, and it looks like next year, how many, since the bond, since the mill levy was, the legacy was partially funded here, by the end of next year, how many new acres of parks will we have opened up?
At least 1,500.
1,500 in all corners of the county,
In all corners of the county.
including my far out part and Commissioner Brown's out in his area too. So we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Geller, very nice presentation, well presented, and I want to acknowledge your efforts to identify, excuse me, my microphone was off, so excellent presentation, and I wanted to tell you how much I appreciate you trying to identify and state your outcomes. You talk about what does success look like. I think that makes a lot of sense, and it makes it easy to communicate to the public that not only are we just building parks and facilities, but we're trying to impact our community in the right way. So very good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think it's important to note also the parkland that has been opened was not recently purchased. It's been in the inventory for 10, maybe 15 years in some cases. So through the recession, we were really not able to do much at all. So it's good to see these activities occurring. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Guys, you're busy.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Next, Mr. Casterly.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time. I'm Sean Castley, the County Librarian for Johnson County. Today I'd like to take a few minutes to update you with regard to the library's comprehensive library master plan, achieving kind of strategy number one, which is delivering on a promise. Today I really want to look at these 6 areas, which is our strategic priorities, our master plan, the Monticello Library, Lenexa, Blue Valley, and Antioch, and kind of give you an update on where we're at with that. But our strategic priorities remain the same. They are focused on education, community building, and convenience. And when we talk to the community about what they want, these still resonate. I'd like to share with you just a little about how we look at success with those strategic initiatives. And so this is a copy of one of our project dashboards. Within that, it includes the portfolio goal, then the tactics that we use, and this is specifically about providing e-cards so people can get a library card without ever having to come into the library. And then it displays the outcomes and the outputs. And we do this for all of our projects. So we have about 50 of these dashboards that show a clear delineation of what we're doing and how those align with our strategic objectives. So the purpose of the Comprehensive Library Master Plan was to develop a master plan that encompassed both services and operations. We really continue to engage the community on that planning process as we go forward. We continue to meet with community leaders and stakeholders so we understand the changing need. And we begin to kind of focus on library services that are of most value. So the principles that we went forward remain the same, and you're familiar with them, which is being equitable across the county, optimizing access, building on existing infrastructure when possible, sustainability, and then also building these buildings in a way that they are adaptable. So again, we're really thinking about the design and about the walls and the flooring and how we can bring in, have different options as we go through the years. So this is the anticipated project timeline and our current CIP. And so here we're showing Monticello, Lenexa, Blue Valley, and Corinth. An anticipated timeline is with an alternate, which is the Antioch and Corinth, and kind of looking at the schedule with those two in mind. There is an opportunity that has come available, which we talked about at our joint meeting, to partner with the City of Merriam. And most of all of our libraries have been through some form of partnership. So let's take a look at Monticello. It's under construction, and we anticipate that this will open in the third quarter of 2018. It is 30,000 square feet. And then the citizens' goals were to have access to technology, children's services, and meeting space and parking. And I'm happy to report that this project is on time and is on budget. Let's take a look at the Lenexa City Center. Again, this is a unique building, I think, with the first kind of suburban-urban creation in partnership with the city of Lenexa. So here we're replacing the library and expanding the Lackman Library. This building is going to be 40,000 square feet. We've just done got the building permit and have done kind of the ground, I think, management piece on that. We've also working with the owners of the domain, property owners that are adjacent, in order to kind of minimize disruption and noise for the citizens that live in close proximity. As we all know, kind of construction can be a bit disruptive. Next issue is the partnership with the City of Overland Park, and this came out of working with them on conceptual design of building a larger location at Blue Valley, and then also combining with them in this idea of creating a literary park and continuing to develop that land. And this was a situation where we really needed to talk to this Community Development Committee, which was part of the City of Overland Park, and our library board, and we came up with these two options. And one of them was expanding the existing building at its present location, and then designing a park that would run along 151st Street. And then the other was creating a new building on the southwest corner, and then running the parkland kind of adjacent to the properties. Both of the library board and the Community Development Committee asked us to go out and engage the community. And we did in a number of ways. Within the library, we asked people to vote through kind of a map and the two options, and they could put a sticker, a little dot. We engaged them through one-on-one community talks at that library, and then we did an online survey. We had about 2,100 people engage in that process. And overwhelmingly, we've got about 89% in favor in the community of having option B, which is a new building. So that is something that the city is comfortable with, and the Community Development Committee voted a yes for, and it's also the direction that the library board voted a yes on. So this will give you some idea of where the park would look, what the park would look like, its adjacency of the parking lot, and then the new two-story library. Again, this is being part of the MOU that we've had with the City of Overland Park on creating conceptual design. So we bring in many of the elements I think that Parks and Rec have, which is Kansas Prairie, ways to discover. And what makes it a literary park is really about the features that are in there. So one of the examples is a clacking bridge. So if you think of Billy Goat's Gruff and the Troll. The kids can walk across that and have that kind of experience, minus the troll. So the next one is the opportunity. In November, the City of Merriam asked its voters if they would approve a tax increase for the community center, and the voters voted yes for that. And once that was done, the city approached us with an idea of would we be interested in locating the Antioch Library to be part of this kind of campus. And we were very interested in talking with them, and so you can begin to see that site. We thought there's a lot of benefit for the community as far as shared parking, proximities to pools and libraries, and again, mimicking many of the things that we're doing in Lenexa. So the board has considered that, met with the city manager and the mayor, and have a letter of endorsement going forward. So this really is about rescheduling our projects and kind of being agile enough to do that. The community center has some really unique features in it that we think would be useful, not only the aquatics, but the meeting rooms, child care, gymnasium, fitness, public art. And so again, there'll be spaces, just as in Lenexa, that the library can share, particularly on meeting rooms, and there are things that the community center can share back, we can share with them. So it's a good relationship. So that means that the anticipated timeline would look a little different, where Monticello and Lenexa are still on schedule, but we would schedule Antioch for 2020, move Corinth up to 2022, and then push Blue Valley back to 2024. We've worked closely with Overland Park, and they're comfortable with that schedule. So again, I want to thank you for your support through this process, and I want to thank, on behalf of the Library Board, for your continued support, and I welcome any questions.
Questions? Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Casserly, thank you. Very nice report. A few years ago, and I'm sorry I don't remember the date, but we had a change in the mill levy. I think it was 3/4?
2016.
3/4 of a mill? Right. Yeah. And part of that was to build and improve libraries, and I think this plan demonstrates a strong effort to do that. Long-term, though, is that mill levy sufficient for the maintenance and staffing of the existing as well as these new additions, or do you foresee having monies available for a 6th, 7th, 8th library? And I'm not trying to be silly, I'm just trying to understand the long-term plan there.
Yeah, and that's a really good question. So what happens with the completion of both the new Antioch, the Corinth, and the Blue Valley is that at which we take on enough debt that we maximize the 0.75 mil, and there would be no ability for us to debt further on any other buildings. And if my memory serves me correctly, the entire plan was a mill levy of 1.1, and so what we're proposing today as far as the schedule would be the maximum that we would be able to do as a system.
With the 0.75?
With the 0.75, that would complete the project.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is your microphone on?
Was. Is that better?
Has to be a light.
Sorry about that.
If there's a green light, you're okay.
Okay, thank you. So this map represents Johnson County, and it shows all of our campus sites, our 5 primary campus sites, and you'll also see that this map represents our 9 individual sites. And at present, facilities management manages 54 buildings, and that comes to about 2.6 million square feet. So what you see here before you represents a good portion of that, which we are managing. I will say that, no, we are not going to be addressing all of these sites, so I want to relay your fears that this is not going to get really lengthy.
Thank you.
So we're going to kind of zoom in a little bit. This is our Sunset campus site, and you can see here we have our property delineated with the line, and you'll see that this site is going to be growing by one with the demarcation of the medical examiner site located on the property marked building number 1. So this facility, and you'll see here on this slide, is a kind of a conceptual rendering of the forthcoming facility. Will be 30,000 square feet, and the project started in December of 2017. The pre-design deliverable is completed, and the schematic design workshop began in late January of this year. So we're anticipating groundbreaking in the fourth quarter of 2018, substantial completion fourth quarter of 2019, and then occupancy after the first quarter of 2020. I want to take a moment and point out we have a gauge at the top. I've marked it here as a status gauge. This is not a real technical gauge, but this is to just kind of give you some concept as to the status of the project that we're working on. So we've delineated 3 different modes. Green representing that the project or the effort is either on track. This project right now is in green because it is operating within the confines of the schedule. However, you'll see this gauge on a couple of other points that we're going to discuss today. Yellow means it's an item that we want to take note, that there's some things that are going to be evaluated further. And then some of the matters we're going to discuss today will show a gauge on red. And that's just merely reflecting that we feel that this item needs to have more attention and consideration taken.
What is the square footage of the examiner's facility?
30,000.
30,000?
30,000,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Health Services Building, this is located on the Sunset Campus. It was built in 1996. It has 90,000 square feet. And currently its occupants are the Department of Health and Environment, which houses WIC and the clinic piece. And then we have Evergreen Living on the other side, and then a small portion supports the Human Services Meals on Wheels program. So last year we brought forth this information, and then through our CIP process we requested funds for a study of the health services, or pardon me, of the Department of Health and Environment piece of this building. That study is going to go forward into this coming year, and we're going to be able to kind of evaluate that information a little bit more, as in conjunction with this slide. So even though we're going to dive into the study and we're going to hopefully garner more information about the building's use, a preliminary space assessment kind of determined that the space that is allocated right now for Department of Health and Environment does not quite support the clients and the service needs that are being provided there. You can see we had 88,500 visitors alone to the WIC and clinic piece in 2016, and those numbers continue to expand, not only with the growth in the population, but just the general growth of their clients. In 2017, a preliminary condition assessment was also done on this facility, and it revealed that we have nearly $10 million in repairs that are needed over the next 5 years, and most of those repairs will come to a critical state in 2021, meaning they won't be able to delay any further. We will have to address those. I've included these photos, and I want to point out the photo on the far left. Hopefully you can see that clearly. There's a crack in the floor, and this crack is actually due to extensive slipping of the foundation at this location. And this is not, what you see here is just in one office, but this extends through a good portion of the clinic side of the facility. That slipping of the foundation and this crack has really put a lot of pressure on the building, and the other photos that you see here are kind of representing what that impact has been. On the exterior, we're starting to see the siding come apart. Windows, interior, exterior windows like this one. There's pressure on the frame, which is causing the glass to crack. As you well know, that breaks the seal, which decreases the efficiency of the building and the HVAC. And then ultimately we have some finishes that are coming off of the wall as well. So the recommendation is, in conjunction with this study that we're going to do this year, is to really investigate the building's useful life, and then we'll come back and report further on this status. So although I'm going to talk about the MedEx stations next, and they are clearly not housed on the Sunset campus, but I aligned it with this because their offices are in the Sunset building. But MedEx currently has 17 ambulances, and they're located in 15 local fire stations, and they have 2 standalone sites. These sites are very strategically positioned throughout all of the county. They serve adjacent communities, and they really afford MedAct some really good coverage to the entirety of Johnson County. And because of those features, it really has been able to allow MedAct to meet their primary service priorities. Another component about their partnership at the 15 local sites is that it's afforded them great synergies with their partners, partnering cities. They share in training, and again, it's kind of just helped to foster that growth of those sites for them. So on this slide, you'll notice I kind of brought the gauge down because I didn't want the gauge to really reflect all of the sites. The 16 that are kind of represented at the top are really in great shape and are supporting the county. But this location in particular, Lenexa Station, located on Haskins, that lease and that location are under evaluation. I would point out that that building has sustained some water damage. There are issues with the facade, painting of the brick, and some gutter upgrades. So all of this is currently under evaluation, and we're anticipating some action going forward through MedAct as they address this issue with the lease extension. So here we migrate to the Spruce Street campus, and again, you can see our property line outlined here and our 4 primary buildings. Of note, I just want to call your attention to building number 2. That was the former ACT building, and we do have that earmarked for demolition this year. The folks that were in there, the Adolescent Center for Treatment, they co-locate now in the Youth and Family Services facility. So this last year, we worked with Shaughnessy Fickle and Scott, SFS Architects, to do a study of the mental health facilities, and this is all of their sites, and we looked at a 5 to 10 year outlook. And their initial assessment, and I am going to dive further into this, was that their recommendation is to replace the existing Olathe mental health location on the Sunset campus. And the 2 drivers behind that is insufficient square footage and that the building is beyond its useful life. In addition to that portion of their study, they also offered up that we need to look at renovations for community support services, the location in Shawnee, just off Shawnee Mission Parkway, and the mental health suite only at the Northeast office. And the reason for those renovations really circulates around a need to create a greater efficiency in the layouts. Right now, if you go to either of those sites, and even actually the Olathe site, and again, we're going to talk more about Olathe in a minute, but the services are really spread throughout the building, and it kind of actually puts undue burden on how the building flows for the clients as well as for the staff that are working there. There's necessary improvements to the physical conditions of both of those locations. We want to try and establish more staff and client separation. We see this in most of our other locations, even here in this building. When you walk into any one of the departments, there's the space where visitors can come into, and then we have that separation with our staff. And so the goal would be to also create this kind of separation at our mental health facilities. And then also to improve the physical environments for both of those facilities. The finishes, many of them are beyond their useful life. Carpeting is very worn. And of note, the environment really does play a very strong impact on the mental health of individuals and the care and the health and healing of those parties. So the Olathe facility. This building was built in 1966. It's 51 years old. It was originally built as a nursing home, and it has 36,000 square feet. And in the time that we've had it, we've made multiple additions. However, of note, those additions were not very strategic. They had very specific needs at the time, and so mental health went about really addressing those specific needs. And so the building has not been able to really mature properly to support the services and the staff that are housed there. In addition to the programmatic study that was conducted, we also did a condition assessment of the building. And I'd mentioned before that the building is beyond its useful life. So this site has also been exposed to extensive slab movement. And the 2 photos that I show here are actually 2 different photos. Those cracks are above the headers of doors. And I want to let you know that those walls are not your typical gyp construction walls. Those are actual brick walls. You can see the cracking is very extensive. In addition to the impact to the slab, there are upgrades required for the HVAC, actually replacement of the HVAC, replacement of windows, replacement of the roof, necessary electrical upgrades, interior renovations, again, finishes that are at end of useful life, meaning very worn. And then there's also some accessibility issues, ADA, I wouldn't say compliance, just some upgrades that would make it easier for individuals who have need to manipulate through that space. And again, one of those being trying to centralize those services towards the entrance as opposed to having those services dispersed throughout the facility. So when we looked at the programmatic needs and we met with them about their business model and their client growth, the building at present has 36,000 square feet. It is anticipated that they will actually need another 26,000 square feet to support the services. Much of that square footage is even needed now. The client services, they want to migrate towards the centralized service, so we would have a common theme between all of our facilities. It would help to kind of increase the spaces for foot traffic and client comfort, and then design an environment that supports health and healing. So again, this one we've got in the red because this facility really has two major deficits against it: condition of the facility and the facility's true inability to sustain the program that is in there and also sustain it for the long term. So we move along to our standalone sites. Again, we're definitely not discussing all of these, but I'm going to bring your attention to just a few of them. So the first one, sheriff vehicle storage. We've got this one in the yellow because this is an item of interest, and the sheriff is requesting to acquire this federal property. Before us, if this were to go through, and this is located just out south here on 169 Highway, there would need to be a building assessment and environmental study prior to purchase. The benefits of that, it just allows us to understand the condition of the building before we go in and what will be needed before we acquire it. And then there will be some building modifications and site improvements because the intent of this facility is to house their fleet management with 10 vehicles. Department of Health and Environment, we also discussed this last year because I brought forth a request to do a study. I know last year I asked you guys to kind of look at and evaluate and support some studies, and I said that they aren't a bad thing, and they really aren't. They help us to really determine what our long-term goals and our objectives are and what our facilities can do for us. So we did get that funding, and we will be conducting that study here this year. That study will look at a security assessment, the physical site, the space needs, and the operational business flow. And you can see from these photos here, ironically, two of them are exterior photos, and this is the lion's share of the square footage that actually supports this side. It's about 5,000, a little over 5,000 square feet, and I would say 75% of it is actual exterior storage for items that are dropped off by our citizens. Of note, even though we're going to be conducting the study for just the household hazardous piece, the Nelson Complex, which is where this is housed, the wastewater treatment plant just off I-35, they are going to be embarking on a $2.7 million study as well. So we're going to look at what their study kind of predicates for their site and their needs going forward, and how household hazardous waste kind of plays into either maintaining that location or possibly not. Elections facility, this one's in the yellow. We're in motion on this one, and it's actually moving along quite well. So we have funds that we requested last year. It was twofold. One was for parking improvements, and this is to really take the burden off of the existing parking lot and how the traffic flows through there. So in years past, we only have had one entrance in and one entrance out, and of course this is an advanced voting site, so there's been a great deal of foot traffic on this location. As well, the ballot drop box was located inside, so that caused all of our voters to have to park their car, go inside, and so that really increased that amount of burden to the parking lot as well as to the foot traffic in the building. So as you can see from this diagram, we're going to have 2 lanes of exiting traffic that'll help to really relay a lot of that congestion as people are leaving the location from their voting. We're putting in 2 lanes that will be able to go directly to a ballot drop box, so those patrons will no longer have to interact with the building itself, and again, reducing that foot traffic. So the other half of the funds that we requested is a study for this year. I'll be forging ahead with that as well. And that will be to examine the current layout of not only the front office space, but also looking at the warehouse space and how do we actually support the longevity and vitality of this site going forward. And so we'll have more information about that once that study is conducted. But for right now, the parking lot improvements are moving ahead. And finally, we're going to wrap up with our downtown complex. So as you can see from here, we have a really large rectangle that represents our new courthouse and the associated...
Let me ask you a couple of questions before we go to to that area.
Sure.
On the Sunset property, after the medical examiner's office, do we have any additional capacity left on that site for structures?
Oh, for structures at that physical location on the breadth of the Sunset
I'm
campus?
talking about the Sunset campus.
Yes, we do. It's my understanding that we do have the ability to add additional structures.
Okay. Second one, I think it was the ATC building over on the juvenile complex.
Yes,
Is that empty now? Is there a proposed?
it is empty.
Has there been discussion about a proposed use?
There has been, yes, for a crisis center for mental health. And that's, right now, on our plate, it's at the very early stages of assessing if the facility can meet the criteria.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Chair.
Other questions, Mr. Ashcraft?
Yes. Ms. Proctor, did you say, or could you explain why the household hazardous waste facility is at the Nelson location rather than someplace more centralized?
Certainly, yeah, that's an excellent question. Actually, that program used to be associated with wastewater. And I apologize, I don't have near the history on it because it was definitely before my time, but it sounded like at some point there was kind of a redivision and reevaluation of what that service was. And so the determination is that it would fall under the Department of Health and Environment, which kind of makes good sense. It's, good synergies. But, yeah, but the site just kind of remained there.
So it's just kind of an artifact of some old organization structure?
Right, you bet.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, yeah.
All right, thank you. Okay. Yes, Mr. Allen.
On the mental health facility here in Olathe,
Sure.
the enlarging that projected cost or cost estimate with the increased square footage, any idea, a rough estimate what that would be?
Not at this time.
Looks like, in my opinion, is very needed. Mental health services are critical to the county, and being in that building, it's, in my opinion, pretty marginal shape. So to me, that needs to be a priority, but I have a feeling, unfortunately, that's a fairly significant number.
I would agree, yes. Of note, there's a couple things that we're under evaluation. Is one, we need to keep the continuity of business going, so we have to try and evaluate what does that look like. Given the size of the facility where it needs to migrate to, that site does not necessarily support that square footage. The other component that we've talked about briefly, all of us together, is just some synergies with the Department of Health and Environment. And so with my study going forward there, we'll kind of look to see if there's some synergies with that. So that will really give us a little bit more shape going forward as to the direction with mental health. But yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, all right. All right.
I think.
Courthouse, downtown.
So this map is, again, kind of our aerial shot, and you'll see number one represents the courthouse and the associated parking with it. Groundbreaking is anticipated second quarter of this year, and then 2020 anticipated substantial completion around third quarter. First quarter of 2021, we're looking at occupancy, and then that same year, we would look at the demolition of the existing courthouse. I also want to bring to your attention that building number 4 on there, it's kind of small, it's to the lower left. That was the Centennial Building, and that was vacated and sold last year, and that is long since been completed, and the new tenants are in. So I'm going to turn this over to Dan Waymueller, who's project manager on the courthouse, and he's going to speak to you a little bit more about those slides.
Thank you, Roberta. Thank you, Commissioners. Good afternoon. Dan Waymueller, Facilities Management. The Johnson County Courthouse will be a high-functioning, public service-oriented facility intended to resolve all of the existing failings of the current courthouse and position the county for the next 75 years. The courthouse will be approximately 320,000 square feet, stands 7 stories tall, and contain 28 courtrooms, expandable to 36 in future capacity. Additionally, the project will include an extension of the existing secure tunnel from the Olathe Detention Center north under Santa Fe to the new facility, as well as the demolition that Roberta spoke to of the existing courthouse with development of that site as a green public amenity space. Current project budget is $193 million, which includes inflation to the midpoint of construction. In November of last year, the Public Building Commission approved the design-build contract with the team J.E. Dunn, Trainer HL, and Fentress Architects who have since been engaged in schematic design. This phase will conclude with a presentation to this board on mid-March. Design development will be the next phase to follow, and then construction after this. Groundbreaking is anticipated for early July of this year with approval of a guaranteed maximum price, or GMP. And as noted, substantial completion is scheduled for the third quarter of 2020. The courthouse project site is illustrated here and is comprised of a 3-block area being master planned by the design-build team. Working left to right from the south and the existing administration building moving north is of course, the current existing courthouse site, which will become the previously mentioned green space after the courthouse is operational, and its demolishment, which will occur in 2021. Across Santa Fe is the new courthouse site adjacent to Olathe City Hall. And lastly, to the north across Poplar is Block 29, the land acquired recently by the county for the construction of courthouse parking. During the current master planning process and design process, the project team has been collaborating closely with the City of Olathe to support our mutual goals and enhance the downtown area. One significant example of the county's collaboration with the city is the concept of utilizing Cherry Street, which is highlighted here in orange, as a means of linear travel throughout the downtown. This helps connect the downtown area from the south of the existing parking garage north to the courthouse parking with prominent destinations and entry points along the way. This includes a common plaza entry space shared between the courthouse and City Hall, upon which both facilities would be entered. This is a conceptual image of the design-build team's master plan concept. What can be seen here in the foreground is the creation of the public green space amenity with the existing courthouse being removed. This will be augmented further by future public engagement to allow the public to begin to help shape this design. This space may include landscaping, trees, walking paths, but there are other potential elements such as the terrace steps and stage area, which you can see depicted to the north. Along Cherry Street, those depictions in blue are the food trucks and other vendors that would help enliven this public space. Additionally, this preliminary draft begins to show the courthouse building form, orientation, and scale within downtown Olathe. This fully accessible building will be approximately 150 feet tall, positioned adjacent to the public shared plaza where a lower 2-story entry point would occur. This is done intentionally to relate to the scale of the existing neighboring downtown buildings and provide a more appropriate pedestrian approach. Public circulation will occur along the east, affording ample daylight and views to the downtown area, while private circulation is intended to be along the western face. Secure inmate transportation will be routed along the underground tunnel into secure elevators and up into holding spaces between each courtroom, so at no time will public circulation cross paths with those who are in custody. The project team is striving for an exemplary example of civic architecture, state-of-the-art technology, and a judicial innovation appropriate to the county and its taxpayers. So, thank you very much.
Before I... No.
I did.
Well, go ahead, Commissioner. I was just going to ask if there were any questions regarding the courthouse, and then I'll wrap it up.
Okay. Dan, could you remind me, how many courtrooms do we currently have?
I believe the answer is 23. We have 23 current district judges.
Okay, that sounds about right. Okay. You said the new facility will be approximately 150 feet tall?
That is correct.
So what's the current courthouse? How high is it?
The current courthouse, the tower from 1972, is approximately 120 feet tall, so we're about 30 feet taller than that facility.
Okay, good. And has there been any discussion yet about the facade of the new courthouse, or is it too early to bring that up?
We're a bit early. You know, you can see in the conceptual image some of the ideas, some of the shape and the form taking place, but that isn't currently will be developed, but will be unveiled in much greater detail on mid-March when we present.
Last question, and there's really two parts of it. The City of Olathe over the years, and I think actively, has talked about a new or remodeled library and or
relocating the post office. Has that been part of any conversation that we're involved in, or is that something they're working on totally on their own?
I believe there were some early discussions of a library potentially going in with the courthouse, but it was the mixing of that facility versus the needs of the courthouse, I believe, was a challenge.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Brad.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioners, for your time and attention today. That concludes our SFMP update for you, and I hope that, in conclusion, I hope you'll agree that the county staff are committed to delivering on the promise to advance existing projects and plan and meet the needs of Johnson County well into the future. And with that, if you have any last-minute questions, we'd be happy to respond to those. And I do want to say one thing. Special thanks again to Jill and her team, Sean and his team, Roberta and Dan with the Facilities Department for all their efforts in putting this information together and making the presentation. So thank you very much.
Very good. If there's no other comments or questions, why, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, you did keep it to an hour.